starting a new year of beekeeping. The weather may hold some people off, but we hope that they come. We always feel like it kicks off, and usually we're packed with new beekeepers, so hopefully some more people will come. I'm just going to introduce our new board. Thanks to Martin Wright, he's back there, and Chris Sargent, who were our president and vice president last year. And I'm going to introduce our new board. I'm Shelley Buswell. I and Janelle Evans in the back are co-presidents. And then we have Gordon Lassen. Just raise your hand. Gordon Lassen is VP. Secretary is Jen White. She's ill. Media specialist is Daniel Webster. So this year we've added a lot of mentor coordinators. So we've got Martin Wright, or we got mentors, Caleb Buswell, Keith Anderson, Bruce, Chris Sargent, and then Becky Hess. I don't see her, she's down in Mount Pleasant. And so we've got everything covered, and we should be able to help people with their mentoring needs. Our webmasters are Chris Sargent and Scott Downey. Chris isn't here. Newsletter is Laura Wigginton, and Terry Berger is putting content in. Farm Field Days is Cole and Kylie Davis. BAB coordinators are Janelle and me. Swarm coordinator is Mike Schaefer. Our BAB youth rep is Ammon Bishop, and he's going to help us with BAB, and he's also going to help with content in our newsletter and on Facebook. The summer picnic, Terry Berger will be in charge of that. Our beginning beekeeping class, Tyler Kropp. And then Keith Anderson is putting together a vendor page, and we're going to see what that looks like so that we can get that on our newsletter. Okay, items. We've got our membership drive going. Janelle's back at the table with that. So you can pay on Venmo, cash, or we take checks too.
You have to be a current member to get on the
You
small
need,
list.
the benefits of being a member are getting the newsletter monthly. Being on the swarm list is very motivating for people. We have 3 spinners to extract honey, so you can check those spinners out and use those in the fall. We are also beefing up our supplies to go with spinners so that we have a drainage bucket, I don't know what you call them, with the honey gate. Yeah, and have a sieve so that you can filter, and then have the knife and stuff so that you don't have to go out and personally buy all the stuff for it. You get discounts on group buys, so we've got pollen patties back there, they're $3.50, and if you went out to purchase them just on your own somewhere, you would be paying more. So they're from Man Lakes, and they are their Ultra bee patties. Also, we do a summer picnic where the association pays for the main dish, and then we just have people bring sides. So those are some of the benefits of being part of it. Also, having mentors help you come. It also aids our BAB program. So yeah, we have a newbie class that will be on March 2nd, 8 to 4, so it will be in this building. It will be all day long. We cover lunch, and the fee also covers a +1, so bring a family member, husband-wife team, or a parent-child team. If people are accepted as BAB, then we want our BAB kids there. It's really good information to give them a solid foundation, and we also know what information they have going into the beekeeping season. BAB, we've had problems with the website with BAB, getting application in essays. So essays need to be sent to the group, the association email address, and it's on the website now. And if you can't get your application in, I've got some applications back there for you to fill out. So that's what announcements. Anybody else in our board think of announcements? Yes.
I don't know if they fixed it, but I went to the website
Yes.
and email
Yes.
for the B class, and it was not email. It wasn't the right email. So if people are trying to email, they might want to go to the website instead of using the the email link that came.
Don't use the email link, use the email address. So we switched emails and
I think it's
old,
working now.
okay,
As of like 2 days, today or yesterday, I think that click, it goes to the right place and or it has the right email address before it had the wrong one.
okay,
So,
all right. One of the things that we started a few years ago is, in January, we created what's called a Legacy Award. And this year, we are honoring Stephen Briles, and I'm going to let Sam Wimpheimer come present that for us.
I know.
When I started beekeeping in 2009 or 8, Steve was the president. I learned to call him Brother Bee. Never really realized if it was for bees or for B for Brills. He's been a good friend and he is knowledgeable in just about anything. He is one of the best Santas that I've ever seen. Due to his job, he has in the past been gone from home 12 to 16 hours a day. Stephen Briles is a busy man who just cannot find time to retire. He plans on retiring and they offer him more money and he stays. He retired from the military as lieutenant colonel. He works for Dugway Proving Grounds running their medical unit. And I'm grateful you're taking time to be here tonight from.
Dugway was shut down today.
Oh, good.
Face closure.
And then, of course, in the past, we used to have meetings on Saturdays, and then we switched to alternate so people could make it. But then we moved to Thursdays, and it's been hard to see Steve much. Steve lives in Eagle Mountain on a small farm, runs a small herd of Icelandic sheep. His sheep shearing day where he calls people to come up and help. At one time, he had a couple I call Spinoni Italiano dogs. They were huge, but they were fun. He got into beekeeping around 2001 when he moved out here and saw that there were no pollinators. And that's one reason why I started beekeeping, because in my backyard, I rarely saw a bee in my few fruit trees and that. And you have to remember too, out there's nothing out there. Now there is.
Yeah.
Before, but when he was
we
out
moved
there.
out, there was nothing.
He's an avid student and got the book Beekeeping for Dummies to get him started. It's not a bad book, it's a good book. There weren't any mentors at the time, there weren't any outlets for supplies or bees in those days in Utah County, so people traveled up to Salt Lake City to Jones Bees, which is not around anymore. Back then, UCBA was an up-and-coming group. Neil Shelley was president at the time. Over the years, UCBA was a place where you could ask questions from older beekeepers and learn from the meetings. He has served in various positions of UCBA, including president. In the early days of Utah County, Kevin Cook and Lee Knight started bringing in bees. Steve started going up into Montana, near the Canadian border to get wood and building wood supplies and build hives to sell. He did this for 10 years. He did bring in bees out of California for people who did not get on an order list with other groups. Steve and our Brother Bee was one of the original BAB, Beekeeper founders. He worked with Lee Knight and others to get it off the ground. Steve furnished the hives, equipment, and outfitted the BAB kids while Lee Knight provided the bees. BAB kids over the years have turned out to be great people who have learned the skills of hard work, problem solving, and being industrious. Many BAB kids have kept in touch with him. Currently, Steve runs 1 to 2 hives. During his busiest time, he was running 20 to 30 hives. He kept his bees up in the orchards that existed by American Fork Temple. These orchards are now homes. When asked what his favorite piece of equipment was, he sighed and said, He said that he has learned that you can make, do, or use whatever you have available to do the job. Beekeeping can be done or gone about through a trial and error basis. That is a resourcefulness. He said, of course, you need protective equipment, a good bee suit. His best advice is to have patience and keep calm. Do not stir up the bees. UCBA honors Stephen Briles for his leadership and efforts to the Utah County beekeeper community and BAB, Be a Beekeeper program. His legacy to beekeeping has been felt and will continue to be felt for generations. For this, we thank you. Brother B, would you come up here?
You bet.
We have one other.
Yes.
Oh,
I was one of the back kids that you
Oh.
helped out back in the day. I don't know if
back
you-
in the day, yeah.
Yeah, back a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I get a picture too? Sweet. Thank you for everything you've
Great,
done.
great. Let me say, thank you for the award, but this is kind of exciting to see, not the award, but seeing you guys here. That the association is still going strong. If it wasn't the fact that I didn't get home well after the time the meetings are, I'd probably still be coming, but unfortunately my schedule just does not fit unless it's on a weekend or something. But yeah, this is good. I'm glad to see it continues on. We've seen some great kids over the years, and I'm sure you guys are seeing some right now. Do we have any BAB kids here? All right. Yeah. So, keep mentoring them. I've seen a lot of these kids go on. I always encouraged them to learn the research behind it, the science behind it, and some of those kids I know I keep in touch with have gone up through their PhD now in various deals, and it was a lot of, they got their interest right here. So keep up the good work, and thank you again.
Does anybody have any questions for Stephen? My question is, do you have a favorite bee breed?
Yeah, I think Carniolans are my favorite. If I had a second, it might be Russians, but Russians are too picky about dearths, and so,
You had
that's-
one for how many years? It just never.
yeah, that was a Carniolan.
Oh,
Yeah, it
that was
would.
a Russian.
Well, it had Russian in it, I think, okay, because it was the same time I was running some Russians too. And it went, I don't even know how many years. And what finally killed that poor hive was one of the sheep got into where the hive was and in the middle of the winter and knocked it over, and when I went out, it was already all frozen. But it was the endurance hive. I've never had a hive endure that well. And it probably was secondary to the Russian, but the Carnies always did well. I always encourage people to start out with Italian just because they're fairly easy. But I think that for longer endurance, Carney or Russians are the best. Russians are just tougher to manage out here where we have dearths, as opposed to someplace that has more year-round pollen type stuff, especially during the summer, spring, fall. So what I always try to get people to do is they say, what's a bee-friendly flower? And, I said, well, pick a simple flower, but I said, most important, pick a variety that will bloom at different times and put that in your yard, so that there's always something going. And I still stick to that as far as endurance goes. Any other questions? Yeah, Sam.
What's changed the most?
Changed the most? I think we have a better handle on American foul brood. I think that's probably the biggest change I've seen. You guys have been closer to it than I have in the last probably 10 years. And so you may have seen some other ones, but that's what I noticed. Of course, I look at, since I deal with bacteria and viruses every day, I kind of look that direction anyway, so. But yeah, I think I don't think we're burning down hives like back in the old days. There are ways of handling it now, much better. Okay. Any others? All right. Yeah, this kind of reminds me, I used to teach a lot of classes, and I'd always have one that was called Stump the Dummy. And people were invited to come up with the strangest questions to see if they could get me. They were all health related type stuff, but
We'll see if
that's
we
always
have
fun.
any. Thank you. Okay, I've made it through December, now what? How many people are here for the first time and you're new to beekeeping? One? Okay, we're gonna hit some of your issues in a second. So, how many have hives you're overwintering? All right. How many have overwintered hives before? Okay, when I was talking to Stephen and finding out about beekeeping and stuff, he was like, some of it's just trial and error. And that's kind of been what it's been like me making it through the winter. So coming into fall, November, we had a lecture about evaporation versus insulation on your hive. And then we had the BYU group here with their experiment. How many put those gadgets on your hive? So we'll see how that works. So it's supposed to improve your ventilation. We'll see what that does and how you guys' hives. So I tried the insulation method, and as of last week when we had a 40-degree day, both of my hives were still alive. So we'll see how this goes.
Through this cold spell.
During this cold spell, we are going to put all of our hives under test. And with all this snow, it is supposed to snow Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So get out there and take a peek at your hive and make sure your entrance is open, that you're not plugging everything up. Okay. What do I do during the winter? Does it mean that it's my period of time that I get to coast and do nothing? We should be checking equipment. If your equipment needs to be repaired, you should be doing that. If you're a new beekeeper, you should be in the throes of gathering equipment, putting new paint on, checking your hives if needed. So getting through December, like Sam was saying, that's pretty easy to get into January 1. Most hive deaths come about February, and hives start starving if you didn't leave enough honey February, March. And we had a bad hive kill last year because we had warm, freezing cold, and so the bees couldn't get out and get any resources. So we need to make sure that you've got enough resources in there. So on a warm day, you're going to be popping and checking to see if you've got enough food in there. Don't feed liquid when it's freezing outside. The bees, it will freeze their insides. Attend classes if needed. We are doing that beginner class. I come from the Lee Knight School of Beekeeping. I went to class. That was how I got into beekeeping. And I feel like that first class really teaches you the basics that you need. I didn't even know what a frame was when I got into it. So you need to get in there so that you can understand what you're doing. Order bees, and we're going to talk about that. The other thing you can be doing right now is being creative. Cole gave a lecture in November about doing infused honeys. You can do creamed honey, do candle soap, salves, cold remedies, doing infused honey with different cold things like garlic and I'm thinking hibiscus, but that's not the one I'm thinking. It's a red berry. You've got a bush cake. Elderberry. Elderberry. So yeah, the garlic elderberry is really good for cold remedies. Make sure that you have a water source out when it's above 40 degrees. I noticed that I have bees out flying, and when it's above 40, they're coming out doing cleansing flights. So yeah, make sure you've got a water source out there. And then consider entrance reducers and mouse guards. Things that kill. Plugged entrances, moisture collection. I have my hives tipped. I take a Jones paint and glass paint stick and put it across the back so that my hive is tipped forward, so that any moisture condensing on the sides is going to come down on the sides and out the front, and hopefully not just dripping onto my hive body or my cluster in there. Consider ventilation aids. Again, I'm not doing that thinking this year, so we're going to find out how all this works, whether my insulation worked over your ventilation. Mites. Should have treated before we got into the cold. Mites build up during the winter, but like Caleb, we were talking before the meeting, we have a brood break, so mites grow in those cells. They like to grow in drone cells, and so first thing in the spring, if your bees make it through, we're going to be treating for mites. Starvation, did you leave enough? You need 90 to 100 pounds of honey. Bees starve in February. This is a mouse nest. Ugh. And I think this might have been with Mike's hive. So he had a mouse last year. Yeah.
They pee on everything.
I just, there's certain things that I don't like. Wax moth, I can't stand. I do not like mice. Do not like mice. So, yeah. Ugh. Oops, did I go back?
Is your hive savable if it's a mouse?
Yes. Okay. So what do you do if you have a dead out? So a dead out's when all the bees died and you left 90 pounds of honey in there and you've got all that honey in there. If that honey isn't chemically adulterated from you treating with something that's not approved on the FDA list, such as formic acid or Apivar, you can collect that honey and spin it. Or you can save that honey and put it in your next hive that you're getting to help feed that new hive. The other thing is, as you're looking at the dead out, you want to make sure that you don't see any evidence of disease, because you don't want to pass any of that disease on to a next hive. So if you see that, you don't want to save that honey and put it into a new hive. You can freeze it, which I would recommend until you're ready to spin it, or if you're going to use it in another hive, just because wax moth do lay on those frames, and if you just leave it somewhere dark, you're going to have a whole frame full of wax moth. Ask me, I know, it happened to me. Clear out the hive, get all the dead bees out. When you have those dead bees in there, moisture collects, it'll start molding, and anyway, it's a mess. So yeah, get those cleaned out. Make sure we've got water. Bees need water to thrive. One of the things with the installation method is the doctor entomologist that is doing this that I presented on, he does the installation, and Seth Homer, when he came and talked to us, talked about it too, so that the insulation's up on top so that it doesn't come up here and hit cold and then drip onto your cluster. So he expects that you're going to have condensation down the side, and he felt like the bees could go out to the edge of the hive and gather water from there. And the less water you have in there, the less the bees have to keep warm in there. Oops, sorry. New beekeepers, what do you know? I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you know about getting ready to have bees?
What do I know?
Yeah,
Well, I as well bought beekeeping gummies. I'm more of a voracious, like YouTube watcher. So I don't know what you want me to tell you.
well, that's good to know. Like when I was talking to Stephen, he was telling me that he's a voracious reader, and so he was reading everything, Beekeeping for Dummies, and everything he could get his hands on. There weren't a lot of mentors back in that day, and so he was a reader. And I think YouTube's good to a certain extent. Like the girl down in Texas that goes into her hives with no protective gear in her Daisy Dukes and gets into her hive. I don't recommend it because I've gotten a sting on my face where I looked like Kim Kardashian, just went in and got lip filler. Yeah, lip filler, and I was like, yeah, Daffy
Wear
Duck.
my Daisy Dukes in the hive.
Can I say something
Yes,
on that?
please do.
Because YouTube is the same as reading. Most of your books that are out actually are published on the East Coast. Beekeeping is local, okay? We have different weather, we have different patterns and everything else from other places, especially different from the coast. So that's why we had the Utah County Beekeeping Association, where we could talk about how we were addressing the local weather issues, the local pollen issues, the local heat or cold issues, that if you went and followed the books or the YouTube, it may look great there, and it probably did work there. A good example was, I talked about Russians, okay? Russians are very, when they see a dearth, they just drop their population, okay? And then it takes some time to build back up. So in the overall, they're not great honey producers here in the Mountain West unless you've got some type of artificial way of keeping them away from a dearth. But people will play up Russians. Oh, it's so great. But where are they located? They're located in Louisiana in the south. And I used to live down there. As a sign down there for a while. Or on the East Coast, where they have constant pollen during spring, summer, and fall. So again, it's local. So when you're reading books like I do or watching YouTube like you do, take that. What may look good or sound good may not apply right here.
When do you put the pollen out in the spring?
Oh, God. Here's the way Sam and I know both, and anybody's been around, there's several of you that have been around for a long time. Everybody comes and says, oh, my hive was doing so great in February. I'm so happy it made it through and it's doing great. Well, either February or March, depending on the weather, and you can get in and do something, that's when I would give them that supplement. The pollen patties, sugar, anything to get them through before they crash. Because what happens, everybody says, oh, okay, it's great, I don't have to worry about it. And then you get the crash because they use it up and there's still nothing out there yet. There's no pollen out there. I used to, when I put them in orchards, I used to say to the people, I said, look, I'm putting the bees out now because it would be springtime, but their trees had all flowered out and done everything. I said, these will be a benefit to you next year, more than this year. This year, they'll be doing fine with all the different flowers and stuff, but as far as pollinating their fruit, it probably is already passed unless it was something that was late to pollinate. And with new hives, you wouldn't have that many bees anyway. But, you know, I always had people look forward to the next year. Let's get them through, then do it. But, answer your question, depending on the weather, you know, it changes each year. When you can start working that hive, I would get it out in late February, March time period. Because that's when it's gonna crash.
I noticed, around me, apricot trees started to come on in April, almost the middle of April.
Yeah.
And so I counted back, let's see, I think it takes like 20, I can't remember, 20 days or so for the queen to
Right.
lay the eggs and everything. So I figured mid-March
Yeah.
to put the
Yeah.
pollen patties on.
Yeah, I would say that was probably good, but you could put them on earlier if your weather is cooperating.
Yeah,
And you know how it's been. Last year was terrible,
yeah.
and so there wasn't. And I don't know what this year's gonna bring us. We're getting this late winter right now, which is kind of normal. But let's see what the end of February is. If it's starting to look good and you've got an active hive, feed it while it's still strong and active. Okay? Don't wait until it's crashed and then go, oh, how come it was so good a few weeks ago? And now it's
So, yeah, you're gonna also, when you're doing that, you're gonna be stimulating brood production, right? So then you're looking at those 21, 24 days as that brood is building up, and you want to be able to look at your natural sources. The first pollen that comes out is the silver maples, linden trees, those start coming out. And so as you're building up, you've got all these babies now to feed, you wanna make sure that you are supplementing them, don't let them starve out, especially when you don't have nectar coming in now
Right.
for them to feed those babies. So, yeah, I think early March, so that you can be ready, because now you're gonna build it up, and you can be ready to split April 1st, right?
You could be if it's built
Yeah,
up
if the weather is
correctly.
good, yeah, the weather's
Yeah.
good.
And
So.
Year to
those-
year is a little bit different, and you just have to get a feel for it.
Yep.
Keep the logs.
Mhm.
So when we're looking at new beekeepers too, when we're gathering supplies, I didn't even know what anything was called. You need to make sure that you've got a top board, a bottom board, and both of those come in a variation of different varieties. You need a hive box, and that comes in deep or medium. Again, Lee Knight School of Beekeeping, I go with mediums because I can interchange between all my boxes. I'm an old lady. I cannot lift a 100-pound box of bees with honey anymore. So I stick with mediums because that's what I can manage. Yes.
I have a question on your bottom boards. Is it wise to get regular bottom boards and then screen bottom boards and switch it basically?
You can, I do, sometimes, yeah.
Or sometimes people will take a screen bottom board, and when they want it to be more like a regular, just slide something in
Yeah,
to block off the screening for, well,
like right now, the hives I'm running, I've got one with a screen bottom board that's plugged off like Steven's talking about, and then I've got one solid bottom board on there. Frames to go on your hive body, and again, those come in a variety. You can have the plastic frame that is wax coated, you can have natural color, you can have black. I personally like black, it makes it easier on my old eyes to see eggs. You can have natural, where they take beeswax and they run it through this machine and it crinkles it so that it looks like natural bees, what am I gonna say, bee wax? What am I, help me out here. Comb, that's what I was trying to think. It looks like comb, and you can put it in your frames. You just need to know if you have both of them in your frame, when you go to spin it, It all looks the same, and I've had my natural in there before, and I've gone to spin it, and I I've blown that baby out, so, yeah.
They'll start to flow.
Wax foundations, you wanna wire them. You wanna make sure you wire them and bend those wires into the wax.
I've seen people also cut skewers and put the skewers top to bottom and put it in there. And-
Basically same thing. You gotta
Yeah, it
support
is.
that wax.
Yeah. Yeah, so you need to get that equipment, get them painted, get them ready. As we select our bad kids, as we meet with them, we give them their boxes and get them where they're painting them and getting that all ready. For gear, a veil, gloves, I personally, and I guess I want to hear from you guys of all of our experienced beekeepers, I don't like the leather gloves. I feel like they get stiff, they get corroded with propolis, and I like to get the 9mm Harbor Freight nitrile gloves. And if my hive is hot, I will double glove. And the nice thing about it is if I get a lot of propolis on my gloves and stuff, I just take them off and in the garbage they go. I don't have to worry about it. I don't know. What's you guys' experience on gloves? I feel like the leather ones are a waste. You can also, if you want higher ones up on your arm, you can get Playtex dish washing gloves, and those work really good. I haven't had a bee get through one of those to sting me. It also gives me more tactile ability working with my frames and working with the bees when I got the gloves on versus the leather gloves. Yeah.
I've got the gloves, but I, like you, they're just sitting on the shelf somewhere now. Because I like those, not plastic, it's,
Nitrile ones.
yeah, and they give you a lot more, feel.
Yeah.
I have a lot of problems with my hands. Got the nerves were destroyed in this hand here, and so, you know, I have to have every bit of feel that I can get in order to, you know, manipulate the hives, so. Yeah, I like that, and I've never been stung through them yet.
Yeah.
So-
Yes.
If you choose to use leather, just know that the cross-contamination from hive to hive is a thing you should have. Probably a pair of gloves just for that, you know, like
For
your
each hive.
You're doing that, you're disinfecting between each one or switching. But
And,
that's-
yeah.
that's-
I would say most people don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chanel, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Gordon has done where he uses the leather protector or leather conditioner like they use on a baseball mitt.
Yeah.
And that really has made the gloves less stiff, like put
Oh.
them in the freezer, break off all that stuff, and then condition them. And
I soaked them, I followed the thing, and somebody that talked about that, because we were talking about, you know, just, they're so stiff, they're horrible.
Yeah.
It's a goat leather is what I have.
Yes.
I soaked
Yes.
them in a dish soap with water for 24 hours. And I thought, well, this is gonna destroy them, but I'm gonna try it anyway. Took it out and let them dry. I didn't dry them, they recommended let them dry, so I let them, it was in the summertime, they dry out, and then I put the leather conditioner on them, and
it was
Janelle
soft.
came over, they're just soft again, they're just brand new. And I was shocked, and all that propolis and everything came off. So
Okay.
I only
All
did it
right,
one
I'm gonna
time,
try
it's
it.
just, it's just
Because
information.
I probably have 5 pair that are sitting there.
And they get so hard, they like look like.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're buying leather gloves, the only thing when I was selling stuff, the only thing I would sell was goat. The other leather was just way too much. Yeah, and of course, I'm not a huge glove lover anyway, even in anything I do, but nonetheless.
I just wonder, do you have a recommendation on the amount of dish soap?
I used the Dawn. They just said to use a mild dish soap. And how much, I can't remember, I just put a little bit in there, that's what
Not much.
they did specifically say 24 hours, let them just soak, and then let them dry naturally, and then put the conditioner on. I was shocked, I thought, these are junk, you know, and I bought the nitro, and I like them, except they're hot,
Your
and they're
hands-
sweating, you know, when you,
Yeah,
they don't breathe
You're
at all.
dripping, yeah, your hands are just dripping when you take them off.
So they work really, but I was surprised, I've only done it once, but I'm gonna keep trying it, just keep reporting back whether or not it works.
That's a great idea. I've not heard of that one before, but. that's a
Pull
great
up
one.
YouTube and just simply say, leather beekeeping glove cleaning. And everybody has an opinion, you know, maybe you can find it in there, I can't remember which site it was.
Did you rinse that soap off or leave it on there?
No, I didn't rinse it off.
Left it on the gloves?
Interesting question. I wrung it out, obviously, but then I just let it dry, and I think the key, one of the keys was the leather conditioner.
Yeah.
A good quality leather conditioner,
Yeah.
really powerful.
That would be very true. I know just
You let
boots and shoes.
Water, just water, stay on a leather glove, doesn't matter what leather. You basically will dry out the leather, it will suck out the oils, and conditioners may help, but eventually you're gonna get cracking and breaking and everything else. It just will not hold. But from what he's saying, he's getting not only the water in there, but he's also getting the liquid soap, which acts as a bit of a conditioner. So when you're doing, you go back to condition, you've dried out all the water, but you still have something in there to keep that leather pliable and workable, and that will help.
And it didn't shrink, that's really shocked me.
The O.J. Simpson factor, right?
Part of that was because of the ghost skin. If you remember, that's what all the shampoos were made out of.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they deal with water a lot better than regular leather.
Right.
The next thing you need to have is a smoker. And I don't know if any of you guys were here last night or last year with Lee Knight, and he said, how many of you smoke your hive? And I proudly didn't raise my hand because my hive last year was so gentle. Like I really didn't have to smoke when I was getting in it. And he's like, then you're not a good neighbor. I'm like, okay. His philosophy is that you need to smoke, that by not smoking, you are stirring up your bees, and you may not pay for it, but the bees leaving the hive pissed off are gonna go over to your neighbors, your neighbor dog, or whatever, and they're going to be angry. So his philosophy is that you need to have your smoker. I would say, especially as a new beekeeper, know how to light your smoker and know how to keep your smoker going. You will be in your hive and you think, oh, this is no problem. You get in, smoke the front, pop the lid, smoke a little, get in there and you're working. And all of a sudden you hear the decibels on your beehive go from a nice hum to a loud hum, and you're like, okay, I've overstayed my welcome. And now the guard bees are coming out after you. And you go for your smoker and you go, and it does not have any breath to it. It's like nothing. So yeah, know how to light your smoker, know how to keep it going. And then the next thing that's valuable, and if you go with the Stephen Browse School of Beekeeping, you can use a number of things as a hive tool. You can use a screwdriver, you can use a number of things, but a good hive tool is good to have and know where it's at. I always make sure I've got my hive tool with me. And I just have a generic hive tool. Mike has a very specific like on the hive tool. His has on the one end of it, it's got kind of a hook.
And a J hook.
A J hook, and he likes that for pulling the frames up.
I love that thing. You can slide it underneath the frame and just kind of give it a little twist and it pops out without damaging it.
And for a brand new beekeeper or anybody else, Janelle taught me, those things just get crusty.
Yes.
And to throw them in the freezer overnight is amazing, how it breaks that stuff off and it turns it back into something that isn't messed up.
And the gal that just left, one of the things that I would say, you know, as you're bringing up being in the hive, if you've got a hive that's kind of iffy and you don't know what's going on, but something is not right with them, don't take that hive tool and go over to your next hive and spread anything. There's always going to be, especially where you've got hives near each other, a little cross-contamination between them, and out in the flowers, you got cross-contamination with bees. But I wouldn't be introducing stuff if you're not sure what's going on. So, yeah, take that hive tool and either rub it down with some alcohol or something after you get done throwing it in the freezer. So, ordering bees. So right now, after the first of the year, we need to look at ordering bees, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, or learn to catch a swarm. And that's easier said than done. Ordering bees. Part of being on Facebook and part of us being a nonprofit is that we don't advertise on our Facebook group. And that's why we're trying to get kind of a vendor site on our webpage, and Keith is getting a classifieds kind of set up. We're kind of looking at how Wasatch Beekeeping is doing it too. We don't guarantee anything from anybody, but these people have been friends of UCBA. Night Family Bees Honey has provided bees for our BAB kids for the last 20 years.
20 plus years, yeah.
20 plus years. And Lee told Janelle and I last year that he will continue doing it as long as he's doing bees and able to do it. So, yeah, and they're who I got my bees from, and Desert Honey Bees out of Price, and then they come up out of Springville. They also have been a friend of Bab. They've given a nuke to help one of our Bab kids that lost her hive a couple years ago. They also have helped furnish queens when we've needed them. IFA's been a friend. They've given us bees that we have auctioned off with our beekeeping group to earn money for us. And so they have also provided stuff. Homer's Bees has also been a friend of ours. So yeah, we've got people that have been really good. There's a lot of people who advertise on Facebook. I try to catch people that are on our group. There's also a Utah Beekeeping Classifieds page on Facebook that you can go to. I will tell you, always buyer beware. You need to know who you're buying from. It's best if you know somebody who's bought from that person before, and that they're reputable. We had people last year that I saw on Facebook that were buying from somebody and sent them money on Venmo and never got a product.
Disappeared.
What?
No, that just disappeared.
Yeah, they disappeared and never answered anybody's email. And there was quite a few people that got burned on Facebook. So have direct knowledge of these people and their product and a way that you can get a hold of them besides just on Facebook. What to order. So most people order a 3-pound package. It's a good size of bees. They come in a box with a newly paired queen. This queen, and a lot of them come out of California. Some people, like Desert Castle, is doing their own nukes. Some people do their own, and Homer's does their own bees that they've overwintered. They send them to California, bring them back, and then their bees, they're the ones that they're making packages with. So there are people that do locals, but a lot of our bees are coming out of California with a newly paired queen. Nukes are 5 frames of bees. They've been together, they've been working with that queen, so it's basically a small colony. The thing you need to ask your supplier when you're buying a nuke is find out if the queen is a new queen or it's last year's queen. And it could be a queen from the year before. So yeah, you need to know how old your queen is.
And that's not necessarily bad if it is a
No.
last year's
No.
queen, just so
No.
you're aware.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, sometimes if it's this year's queen, you don't even know if they're mated, like, I mean.
Yep.
So, we had that happen within the association where somebody bought one and they said it's a new queen and she's mated, and she wasn't mated, and she was past the point of mating, and so then they had to go buy a queen. So, I don't think Shelley's necessarily saying, make sure it's a brand new queen.
Be informed.
Just know what you have so that you know what you're looking for.
Hey Shelley,
Yes.
on the slide before,
Yes.
the 4 kind of sales groups that have got some good reliability to them, is there much difference in pricing between those 4?
I haven't looked at Night Family Honey yet to see what they're selling for the things that I've seen on Facebook. Some people that are splitting their own and making their own local packages. I've seen $130, which is on the cheap end of it. And then some of them on the other end are about $180 is what I'm seeing right now for packages.
Homer just listed theirs a few days ago, and they're 200 for a nuke.
They are.
Holy
$200 for new, $170 for a package.
Yeah, that's a lot more than last year. Nukes were going for 165-ish.
Yeah.
I think last night was like, what, 130?
As far as packages from local people, I generally see about 150 this year. But I saw one for 170, and that was from the person I bought it from last year, and he was
Steve, if that's
150
too
last
big,
year, and now it's
it's form fitting. If it's too big, let me know. I'll get a
170,
smaller size.
not sure I want to buy from him this year.
I quickly looked at nights just the other day, and it seemed like it was about 150-ish. It was what he had. He had 4 different varieties, and they were a little bit different, but right in that territory.
Looking on here right now, bids are between 173 and 177.
Packages only on the,
What?
for nights, it's packages only, right?
Right.
They're all about the same price.
Yeah, when you're dealing with, most of your reputable bee suppliers will try to replace your queen if there's a problem. But,
So how much is Stan's going for right now?
I don't know what I don't even know.
So Stan's down in,
Spring City.
yeah, Spring City, down in San Pete.
Yeah, most of the people that buy from him, we have a place here in over in Provo that pick up. That's where most of the people pick their stuff up.
And remind me of his beekeeping group is
His company.
The honey company.
The honey company.
the Honey Company. And he's got a lot of good things on his webpage too, a lot of education stuff.
So,
Okay.
can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
It looked like I've only ever bought packages, but assuming you have drawn comb, the nukes look like they came 2 weeks after the packages came. What's gonna get you up and going faster? A nuke will?
Okay, so you've got drawn comb for her to come and lay in. One of
The
the,
frames, but yeah, you faster getting 2 weeks head start with a package or.
so when you're getting a nuke, typically on those 5 frames, most of the time the outside frames will have honey on them, so you've got those center 3 frames. If I was going to pick up a nuke from somebody, you might, it depends on how trusting you are and how well you know them, but you might want to get in there and look, because you're supposed to have a laying queen, that those 3 frames have eggs on it and have brood and ready to go,
And
right?
assuming that were the case, is the 2 weeks of head start, seems like you get a fair amount of brood in 2 weeks if you put a package in that drawn comb.
Are you saying in drawn comb already?
Yeah, if I have drawn comb, I have drawn comb now, I'm gonna start a new hive, but I've got plenty of frames of
Yeah,
drawn
but
comb.
The thing with doing nukes is, you know, you should have the laying queen in there. If you're with a package, she's generally a virgin queen.
Yeah.
So you have 2 weeks before she'll be running.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it takes.
A lot of times they're mated queens too.
They should be mated.
But yeah, most of them are mated, but she still has to get a few days at least before she'll start laying again.
And 3 pounds of bees per package, do you think you're getting fewer or the same amount of bees in the nuke?
It depends on the size of the nuke.
Yeah.
You'll have about a 5 frame nuke.
So here's the other wrench I'm gonna throw into it. I run mediums. Guess what nukes come as?
Large.
Deeps.
Are those frames that come with the nuke, are they generally nice, new, clean frames, or are they dirty old
It depends on.
Depends on
gross frames?
who you're
Usually
working
they're
with.
used frames.
Usually they're used frames, they can be plastic frames, they can be They could be a
You're not
mess.
getting 5 good frames out of the deal.
No,
Not
you're-
necessarily.
Not necessarily.
But you could be.
So I have had, if you've got a good relationship with somebody that is making packages, if you let them know ahead of time and say, I want to do mediums, they will make you a medium nuke box. So,
Last year, when I was looking for them, there was only $20 difference between a 3-panel and a nuke. If there was 50 or 60, I would say, oh, give me
So Cole, what would you go with then?
that. Last year, I went with news.
Nukes, that's what I would come up with. I would always choose the nuke. That's my personal.
I mean, there's a few, well, there's nothing that's guaranteed, but if you've got a queen that's already been accepted for the hive, which is laying eggs and has brood, you basically, it's a plug and play business. Put it in your box, put the top on it.
I did a nuke for the first time though last year, and she, best queen pattern I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I thought she's gonna be amazing. And she would just, because of that 5 frame, that's all they would do is go up and down the 5 frames. And then go to the side.
Yeah, you gotta do some.
Yeah, even packages will do that.
Yeah.
It just depends on your queen. You gotta, that's when you gotta start moving your empties in.
hopscotching them. So on bee breeds, again, what Steven's saying is it's good to talk to people who know your area. So Carnolians and Italians, especially for new beekeepers, are our most reliable bees for this area. They're easy to work with, they have good survival rates for our area. Italians is the default bee that beekeepers use. It's generally considered a good all-purpose bee, and it's good for beginners. That was what Lee gave our group when Josh started bees, was Italians, and he said, if you can make it through, I can remember this so well, if you can make it through the first year, then we'll talk about a different breed.
Right.
But it's the most common stock bee, and it's the most common in packages. So pros and cons, good beginner bee, it really builds up quickly on the comb. Light colored worker with a dark queen makes her easier to locate. Good forager, they only have a moderate tendency to swarm. They're easy and calm to work with. The other nice thing about them is when they start getting angry, they'll start to let you know. They come and they bump your veil. Before they sting you, they come bump you and give you warning. They have some resistance to foul brood. They have strong cleaning behavior and a lower range of propolis producer. Cons is after the honey flow ceases, the brood rearing continues. I don't know if that's right. They build a great deal of burr comb. They're prone to drifting, so they can go back and forth between hives. They do headbutt, but I think that's positive.
Shelley?
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Anybody who's new and starting, consider having 2 hives.
Yes.
It's very helpful to have 2 hives because then you can compare what you're doing with one hive to the other
I
hive.
agree with you.
And you can see what's going on. If one's not doing well, you can tell the difference.
You can tell it's not.
And
So
you
can
have,
tell it's not doing well.
Exactly.
You don't have to go, well, it looks like everybody, you can go to the other hive and go, okay, what's going on?
and you can use resources from one
Yes.
hive to help your other hive.
So we're talking 2 of the same breed, right?
No, it doesn't matter.
And because I'm coming to this because I'm nervous going into next winter, because all these people online, even in like Georgia and stuff, are like, you only get like 60% back out, so
Yeah.
it seems like 2 is one is done.
Honestly, like, the bees, after your first year, no matter what they say, it doesn't matter. They're all mutts.
Yeah.
Your queen, if they replace, if they supersede your queen, she's gonna go out and she's gonna mate with whatever's around, come back, and you may not have what you thought you had anymore. So it's, everyone wants to say, this is what we have, but
Yeah.
short of actually sitting down and really putting the effort into, like, looking for
Genetics.
those characteristics, almost nobody has some purebred.
You have to have a whole lot of land to keep.
The only way you get a purebred is to have them artificially inseminated.
Yes, or making sure that you're replacing the queen in that hive with that breeding queen. Carnolians, is a subspecies of the western honeybee. It is found all over Eastern Europe. Pros, they're early morning foragers, so that's a good thing. You want your bees up working. They forage on colder, wetter days than most bees. They overwinter well on small stores. They build up rapidly in the early spring, but like Stephen was saying, you got to make sure that you got food for them, because as they start rapidly building up, if they don't have food, they're going to crash and burn. They're gentle to work with. They're less susceptible to brood diseases, and they create less brace and burr comb. They swarm easily, so you got to keep an eye on them. Janelle had a hive that swarmed like 5 times in a few weeks. If pollen's scarce, they decrease the brood quickly. They can be more aggressive than Italians. Other bees to consider: Russians. They're more expensive. See you guys, thanks for coming. Saskatraz. So Saskatraz, I know that Lee Knight sells them.
That's what Anna got last year.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what he.
I love Saskatraz.
So people like Saskatraz. There's so many good things about them. But it's like Caleb was saying, if you aren't replacing with a Saskatraz queen when you're splitting that hive, you are losing those genetics. So if you want to keep a Saskatraz apiary, you've got to make sure that you've got Saskatraz going back into it, right?
Yeah. You have to remember, when they put packages together, they just have a big collection of bees, okay? And they put so much in it, and then they say, okay, this is gonna be a carny, so they grab
Take a carny queen and put it in
and put
hers.
it in there. The rest of the bees could be anything.
They're not
Yeah.
necessarily,
Okay.
and that's why it says a lot of the core bees that these breeders are putting in are Italians.
Or sometimes.
Yeah.
It's whatever that has multiplied the best, and they've got plenty of them. And,
Yeah.
And they've got a machine that just
Dumps
kinda-
a big funnel
It's
of
like
them.
a huge funnel, yeah.
And then they put them down in a bag and weigh them, and then they put them in your package. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, I also had really good luck with Russians too. They seem to do really well here.
What did you say? Sorry.
Oh, the Russians I've had do really well here. So the Saskatraz so far has been my favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what they said last year, is that I want you to do the Saskatraz, it's a really good strain. They overwinter really well, where we have problems with, and they don't use as much, so, and it wasn't more money.
Well, in fact, my Saskatraz hive this last year is probably one of the best hives I've had.
Yeah.
And the bees were super great, easy to work with. It wasn't crazy, so.
Yes, Keith.
So how much do they actually, I mean, when I bought my bees last year, I asked him what kind of bees these were, and he said they're mutts. So does Italian and Carnies?
The only thing that's really is the
It's
queen.
the queen.
Yes.
And the queen probably does not come, the people that put the packages together, I'm talking about the big fat deals, not, somebody's running a small operation maybe. But back in California, those guys, and I've been out to those farms and got to know them fairly well back in the day. And they're basically raising bees. They're actually usually bringing in the queens, okay? Or they have a separate queen breeding areas off in the middle of nowhere, if you can find that anymore. And then what they're using for their breeding is artificially inseminated queens. If you want a job with try that one. But they're all AI queens that they use for their breeding stock, so that they're sure they have absolutely purity. But then from there, so they're bringing in the queens usually from somewhere else, and they're packaging it up.
The thing with bees is they aren't really like the workers, they just want a queen. They don't care if it's the same species or not.
If it smells right.
Yep, as long as there's the pheromones, they're happy. I mean, you can even take
They
like
don't
a
even care
frame.
which hive to go in.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yep, you can even take, a lot of people are like, I gotta clean all the bees off this frame before I put it in this other hive as a, supplement or something, and really don't.
Yeah.
As long as your queen's not on there, you can just take it and put it in there, and they'll be just as happy.
They'll
as
probably
everything.
follow that frame anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
They'll be
honey.
super happy in there, so. And then they'll just be part of that other hive.
I was just wondering whether the queens were really pure or whether they were.
The queens are about as pure as you can get, but the rest of the bees in that package is,
Oh, I
yeah,
know.
that is, who knows what.
Yeah.
Usually
Well, I
Italian.
knew that, but I just really wondered about whether the queen.
Yeah. They're as pure as they can get, okay, because they're open. If you want an absolute pure, you have to go to artificial insemination. And I don't even know what the price is. It used to be a decade ago, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for your queen.
Or pure.
Yeah, because you're paying for.
But now they're about $50 or so.
Russians are your best
Just
bet
buy it.
if you want pure, because those are raised on,
Yes,
initially on islands where that's all there is.
yeah. Down off Louisiana, at least that's how they started. And those breeders have pretty isolated groups. When they first brought in Russians to the U.S., they had them on an island off of Louisiana because USDA wanted to make sure that they were okay, and they stayed out there for a long time. And then they had authorized breeders that the USDA would sell to. And that was it, and so, yeah, Russians are probably about as pure-blooded as you can get, but once you get it out here, it's a mix to a certain extent.
So the last thing is your new beekeeper, the state of Utah, and this is something you can decide, requires you to register. And the advantage of registering is that you can have one of our state inspectors come to your hive, and they've been really helpful and they've been friends. They're not the Gestapo. You've seen, it starts with a J. Janelle, what's our? Jenna. There you go. Jenna Crowder. She's come down here and gone through people's hives with them. She's really informative.
Super
And she's
nice.
not here to tell you,
Right.
you're doing this wrong, you're doing that. She helps you do an assessment, helps you give you suggestions. It's $10. It covers you for 10 hives, and you can be at 3 different locations. And then it,
Also, they'll send you out
A card.
flyer if there's like diseases in your neighborhood.
if they
If they
found
find
this,
like Valbrue within a certain radius,
Yeah.
they
Right.
send it to you.
I got one of those from them last year.
And the unspoken advantage of having your registration with the state is when the neighbor who hates your bees calls the cops, and the cops come by and you say, oh, I'm a licensed beekeeper. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Usually else-
But it does.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They don't really send you a license.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
I've never got one, but I've been registered for 2 years.
Did you look, if you go online and then you can just click it and print your own? Even with my nursing degree, they don't send it out anymore. I have to click it and print it.
I think last year I actually got one like mailed to me.
I got one by mail.
Oh. So, the last thing, Bruce has got some queen markers, marking tubes. If you want to purchase these made, they're $5. So, yeah, and he can show you how to use them. And probably in the future, we will have somebody do something on that.
What's this year's color?
I don't know. Is there any questions anybody has? The big thing, if you got anybody that you know that wants to sign up for BAB and they're having problems, let Janelle or I know. We are going to be making BAB selections before our February meeting so that we can have them chosen and let them know and announce at our February meeting.